Marcus married me, but claimed our 3-year marriage was nothing more than a passing fancy. He tossed a pen and a set of divorce papers at me. Sign them quickly. Don't delay my wedding with Chloe. A clear, crisp voice suddenly cut in. Sign this too. A vibrant red booklet was slapped onto the table with a thwack. I turned in surprise, only to see Nathaniel, standing nonchalantly behind me, raising an eyebrow. In front of me, the marriage certificate and divorce papers lay stacked together, leaving me stunned. Later, Marcus looked at me, with trembling eyes and asked, "Grace, how about we get back together?" Nathaniel pulled me into his arms, a playful smirk on his lips. "Did you just say you want to get back together with my wife?" The City High Society Gala was a scene of lavish decadence. Marcus and Nathaniel sat at the main table, one on each side. Marcus was a rising star from a publicly listed company with a brilliant future. Nathaniel was an established figure in high society with deep roots. A stream of sycophants crowded the space between them, making it impassable. As they chatted, someone brought up Grace. A busybody interjected, "I heard your current wife, Grace, was your girlfriend since college. Everyone says you two are true love." "Marcus, what are your thoughts? Is it true?" Marcus let out a puff of smoke between his lips, chuckling softly. "Of course not." His words caused a stir throughout the room. Those nearby quickly pressed, "Why? If it wasn't true love, how could you have been together for 3 years?" Marcus scoffed, "Just a meek, timid coward. If it weren't for her good looks, she's decent enough to bring along to save face. Who else would marry her?" A friend familiar with him patted his shoulder, laughing teasingly. "Marcus, that's harsh. The girl clearly fell for you genuinely." "What even is genuine affection?" Marcus said, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his expression full of disdain. He flicked the cigarette ash carelessly. "Haven't you heard that saying? A doormat eventually loses everything. Comparing your wife to a doormat, you are truly something else. Isn't she? She does whatever I tell her, more obedient than my housekeeper." As spoke, he snapped the cigarette in his hand, casually threw it on the ground, and stomped it out. "If I weren't worried about the rumors, I would broken off the engagement with her a long time ago." "Worried about what rumors?" A cold, deep voice sounded, instantly silencing the boisterous crowd. The words carried such a strong sense of authority that everyone involuntarily turned their heads to look at the person seated at the other main table. Nathaniel, his expression devoid of warmth, leaned back in his chair, observing the farce with cold eyes. The gala lights illuminated his face, outlining a noble and unparalleled profile. His narrow eyes were slightly narrowed, the danger in them undiminished. He exuded an air of refined elegance, yet also an intense, unapproachable aura. This left everyone momentarily stunned. After a while, they finally reacted, asking, "What does Nathaniel mean by that?" Nathaniel lowered his gaze, his tone equally devoid of warmth. "The literal meaning." These words again stirred surprise in the crowd. "So, in your opinion, Marcus should break off his engagement with Grace?" Nathaniel didn't speak this time. He stood up and cast a cold glance at Marcus. "After all, cheating in marriage, when it gets out, sounds worse than breaking off an engagement with a wife you've spent 3 years with, wouldn't you agree?" After saying this, he left the table without looking back. The gala erupted into chaos. After all, everyone knew this man was a Buddhist, and never lied about such matters. Chapter, "Who he from Cage? What did you say?" I stared at Brooke in disbelief. Nathaniel said Marcus cheated. My first reaction was disbelief. How is that possible? Chloe has settled abroad. Who would he cheat with? To my surprise, Brooke was even more shocked than I was after hearing that. "Chloe came back a year ago." "Grace, didn't anyone tell you?" My entire body trembled. Like being struck by lightning, couldn't describe how I felt. The words caught in my throat, becoming difficult to articulate. "I didn't know, he didn't tell me either." Brooke gritted her teeth. "That scumbag. He must have rekindled old flames with Chloe. Just wait, I'll get revenge for you." As she spoke, she rolled up her sleeves, looking ready for a fight. I quickly pulled her back, my voice hoarse and broken in a way I hadn't even realized. Wait a minute. I still clung to a sliver of hope. What if it's not true? Brooke glared at me. Grace, are you really that hopelessly romantic? She pointed to herself, agitated. Let me tell you this, sis. Even if you told me now that I'm fake, nothing Nathaniel says could possibly be fake. Who is he? He's Nathaniel. What rumors could ever escape his notice? For so many years, no one has ever heard him utter a lie. Let alone gossip, he barely ever gets involved in speculative matters. I realized the weight of his words. But honestly, I just couldn't muster the energy. Over the years, Marcus had hurt my heart too many times, leaving me feeling utterly insignificant. So much so that now, I didn't even have the courage to suggest divorce. Brooke clearly saw through me, letting out a frustrated sigh. She pulled me along. You don't dare to bring it up, do you? Fine, I'll do it for you. Before she could finish, the door to my house clicked open. Marcus stood indifferently outside the door, holding a thin piece of paper. Grace, I have something I want to discuss with you. Brooke, whose temper was quite fiery, retorted, discuss. Why don't you explain what Nathaniel said earlier today first? She picked up the glass beside her, ready to throw it, but her hand paused midway as her gaze abruptly fixed on the paper in Marcus' hand. Curiosity piqued, I couldn't help but follow her gaze. What is it? My words trailed off, because I saw clearly the paper in Marcus' hand. It was a divorce agreement. Sign it. Marcus placed the paper on the table, seeming not to want to waste another second. A sudden rebellious streak surged within me, and I replied coldly, so eager. Busy getting married to someone else. A flicker of surprise crossed Marcus' eyes for a moment, then he calmly admitted it, tossing a pen to me as an afterthought. Yes, sign it. Don't delay my wedding with Chloe. Chapter, A Treasure Deeply. Chloe. Chloe. He made me laugh with anger. I was about to retort. A clear, crisp voice suddenly cut in, sign this too. A vibrant red booklet was slapped onto the table with a thwack. The wind rustled its pages, also making the divorce papers flutter. I turned in surprise, only to see Nathaniel, standing nonchalantly behind me, raising an eyebrow. In front of me, the marriage certificate and divorce papers lay stacked together, leaving me stunned. Wait. I looked at Nathaniel, then glanced at Marcus. Did you two plan this? Nathaniel couldn't conceal the disgust in his eyes. No. Marcus was equally irritated. I said, why were you acting crazy at the gala? So you were just waiting for me to divorce so you could marry Grace. Nathaniel gave him a cool glance. What if I was? You wouldn't want me to spill everything, would you, and let your family suffer for your actions in our circle? Brooke rushed forward. Say it. I'll expose you right now. Looking around, I realized I was surprisingly the calmest one in the group. I quickly signed the divorce papers, then swiftly signed. Wait, what's the point of me signing a marriage certificate here? It wouldn't be legally binding. I picked up the small booklet, and Nathaniel's gaze immediately shifted to it. To register this, I think we need to go to City Hall. I bit my lip, but Nathaniel mistook it for hesitation. His surging anger instantly subsided, and he softened his voice, asking, is there a problem? I told him my concerns, and Nathaniel was momentarily surprised after hearing them. Then let's go to City Hall now. He took my hand and started to leave, leaving the two behind, stunned in place. After we had walked some distance, I couldn't help but tell him the truth. Nathaniel, I was just trying to annoy him. We just met, and we are getting married right away. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? The man, rumored to be strong and unapproachable, frowned. His apple bobbed as he hesitated to speak several times. Finally, he stopped. I'll do whatever you want. If you think it's inappropriate, then what? We won't get married. I chuckled. It's fine, we are adults. Having just heard Brooke fill my head with stories about Nathaniel, I couldn't deny feeling a subtle curiosity about the man in front of me. Upon hearing that Chloe had returned, I already largely believed Marcus had cheated. And seeing how eagerly he came to my door for a divorce, even saying he'd marry Chloe. The thought of being cheated on practically glowed above my head. I was initially somewhat reluctant about getting married, but seeing his obedient, "I'll do whatever you want" demeanor, I reconsidered. Maybe trying it wouldn't be so bad. Besides, we are both adults. Is allowed to cheat in marriage, but I'm not allowed to try a marriage of convenience that might lead to love. Hearing my answer, Nathaniel's body trembled slightly, then he gripped my hand even tighter. His words were as solemn as a promise. "Don't worry, I will treat you well." I chuckled softly. "All right, I'll wait for you to prove it." Chapter: No Promises Forever. After we had registered our marriage, I dazedly followed Nathaniel home. When I came to my senses, I abruptly let go of his hand. Wait a minute, this development seems a bit off, doesn't it? Shouldn't Nathaniel and I slowly develop feelings, and then, at some point, naturally progress? How did we just inexplicably end up at his house? Nathaniel looked at me, silent for a long moment. A trace of hurt flashed in his eyes. "Do you want to go back to your own home?" I was about to nod in agreement when he added, "Then I'll take you back." His words, instead, made me feel a little embarrassed. Although we were legally married, nominally we were husband and wife. But's eyes, shining with clear affection, were completely at odds with his remarkably restrained actions. "It's fine," the words left my mouth faster than my thoughts could process. "Running back and forth is too much trouble, and I might run into Marcus if I go back. Let's just stay here." I clearly saw Nathaniel's eyes light up. His dark eyes shimmered like a scattered galaxy, and he pointed to the various doors, saying gently, "Choose any room you like to stay in. If you have any problems, just find me." Meanwhile, in the gala hall, Marcus had specifically gathered his familiar friends for a gala today. His friend Sam leaned in mysteriously, nudging him with his elbow. "Hey, haven't we been good buddies for years?" Marcus, not understanding, asked with a cigarette in his mouth, "What's with the sneaking around? What are you doing?" Sam excitedly rubbed his hands together, leaning closer to ask, "Suddenly dragging us to such a big gala today, that's not simple, is it?" Marcus couldn't help but let a smile play on his lips, though it vanished quickly as he feigned calm. "Why? Oh, come on, still pretending." Sam slapped his shoulder hard, getting straight to the point. "Just tell me, are you planning to propose to Chloe today?" Sam was confident he'd guessed correctly and stated it with certainty. "Sure enough," Marcus paused, then vaguely replied, "You'll know when the time comes." I get it. I'll keep your secret." After a little laugh, Sam excitedly bounced back. Marcus put out his cigarette, stared at Sam's retreating back for a moment, then slowly walked into the gala hall. The moment he entered, a slender, graceful figure rushed up to him, clutching his sleeve and refusing to let go. "Marcus, did you miss me, Tilda?" Chloe was wearing a knee-length evening gown in a light blue shade today. From a distance, it almost resembled a wedding gown. Marcus' heart skipped a beat. He had a feeling she had guessed something. "I missed you," he said, deftly pulling her into his embrace and kissing her. "Chloe, you look beautiful today." Chloe tugged at the hem of her skirt, smiling back, "Of course. Coming to see Marcus, I have to look my best, don't I? Otherwise, how could I be worthy of our business circle's rising star?" Marcus smiled helplessly, his words full of indulgence. "You and your smooth talk. Come on. Marcus, Chloe, sit here." The gala was filled with familiar friends. After exchanging greetings, they sat down to eat and drink. After the meal and drinks, everyone was a little tipsy. Marcus instinctively reached out to the side. "Where's the hangover remedy?" Chloe, sitting right next to him, was taken aback by his gesture. "What hangover remedy?" Hearing this, Marcus finally sobered up a bit. He squinted, looking at the person next to him, feeling his stomach churn, terribly uncomfortable. Everyone had been too excited earlier, plying him with a lot of alcohol. Now, without a warm hangover remedy waiting for him, he felt quite unaccustomed. He only vaguely remembered that he hadn't felt this awful in years. The swaying figure before his eyes strangely overlapped with Grace's image in his memory. Half drunk, Marcus gripped Chloe's shoulder, muttering dazedly, Grace, go make me a bowl of hangover remedy. His tone was so accustomed, as if he had said those words countless times before. That name made Chloe suddenly jump up, shake off his hand, and glare at him fiercely. I'm Chloe. Whose name did you just call? This scene drew glances from those nearby. Sam quickly intervened. Don't be angry, Chloe. He's just confused from drinking too much. The casual intimacy in his voice, when he called out Grace, deeply wounded Chloe's heart. Sulking, she stood up straight. Then I'll leave first. We'll meet again next time. She didn't truly want to leave, she was just testing Marcus' reaction. However, halfway there, she suddenly turned back, only to find that Marcus showed no intention of stopping her at all. He was still sitting there, eyes half closed, waiting for his hangover remedy. Marcus, she stomped her foot in exasperation. I'm leaving. Aren't you going to stop me? In this outburst, she had completely forgotten about Marcus being drunk and uncomfortable. But her loud words did manage to pull Marcus back to some semblance of sobriety. He hesitated before saying, Chloe. Hearing this, Chloe's anger largely subsided. She turned and sat back down. Yes, it's me. Go get me a glass of hot water. Chloe had never heard such a blunt, commanding tone before. She immediately became unhappy again. You are asking me to get water, but you are not even trying to placate me. One of Marcus' friends nearby, unable to watch any longer, adjusted his black-framed glasses. Marcus is clearly unwell, Chloe. Don't argue with him at a time like this. Unexpectedly, these words reminded Chloe of the earlier moment when he had called out, Grace. Marcus had never ordered her around like that, yet in just a few minutes, he had spoken to her several times, in the same tone he used for Grace. Thinking this, Chloe immediately became displeased. She huffed, he's uncomfortable. Well, I'm uncomfortable too. Why are you so unreasonable? The man with black-framed glasses grumbled, shifted his position, and got up to help Marcus to the restroom. A crowd of friends swarmed around, leaving Chloe alone. Between washing his face with cold water and the hangover remedies, most of the group of grown men were drunkards. After a chaotic effort to get him sorted, it was already late into the night. The man with black-framed glasses complained discontentedly, Chloe really has a nerve, throwing a tantrum at a time like this. Marcus was largely sober now, and recalling the earlier scene, he felt a chill in his heart. He nodded noncommittally and followed the crowd back to the gala hall. Chloe had been left alone, sulking and waiting for Marcus to appease her, but had been through a rough time sobering up, and he was still annoyed. They remained in silence for a while, neither willing to speak first. Finally, Sam spoke, breaking the silence. Marcus. Marcus, eyes lowered, looked up. Sam sighed inwardly. Marcus hadn't forgotten the main event, had he? In front of Chloe, he couldn't be too direct, so he merely hinted, everyone got pretty drunk earlier. Did you forget something? What was the purpose of this gala anyway? Chloe seemed to sense something and looked over as well. She vaguely guessed that Marcus would propose to her at this event, otherwise, she wouldn't have dressed so elaborately. Unexpectedly, Marcus lowered his head, and rummaged through his cigarette pack, finding nothing. No reason, he said, his mind irritated, then instinctively reached out. Where are my cigarettes? After making that gesture, he suddenly realized. The person who would always carry his cigarette pack, and hand it to him, the moment he asked was Grace. Not. Chloe watched his actions, her eyes suddenly dimming, and a faint sense of foreboding rose within her. Chapter, from day, she only me. Marcus was a rising star in a publicly listed company. After marrying him, she would surely have everything she wanted. Cars, houses, designer bags. Chloe was more eager to get married than anyone. Yet, presumptuous due to being favored by Marcus, she wasn't worried he'd back out. She always felt that marriage was only a matter of time. Sam, still thinking Marcus had forgotten the main event, was so anxious that he blurted out, Buddy, weren't you planning to propose to Chloe today? How could you drink so much you forgot the main point? Chloe had displeased him repeatedly today, and his stomach still ached slightly. Marcus instinctively didn't want to bring up the topic, so he brushed it off casually. nothing like that. Today's just a regular get-together." At these words, Sam's eyes widened. Chloe also rushed forward in disbelief, clutching his hand, on the verge of tears. "Marcus, we've been together for a year already." Marcus hated nothing more than people trying to emotionally blackmail him. He frowned and pulled his hand away. "This isn't something to rush, let's wait a bit longer." After saying this, he took out his phone to call his chauffeur, leaving the gala hall while on the phone. Leaving standing there, stunned for a long time. ATS home. Have a bite. When I woke up, Nathaniel had already prepared breakfast, and personally brought it to my door. My face flushed, my expression still hazy from sleep. "Oh, you shouldn't have. I remembered what you like." His tall frame, with jade-like knuckles, holding a small breakfast plate, looked utterly incongruous. "Please, have some." I took the tray and glanced at its contents. Soft-boiled egg, fried shrimp crackers, Swiss roll with a side of jam, they were indeed all my favorites. I suddenly realized something was off. How could my unusual, mixed breakfast preferences have been prepared so perfectly? I tentatively picked up the Swiss roll and took a bite. It was soft and fluffy, more delicious than any breakfast I'd ever had. Before I knew it, I had finished it and asked, "How did you know I liked all these?" Nathaniel's fingertips paused almost imperceptibly. I heard someone mention it. At a certain gala, Marcus had once loudly publicized my unusual eating habits to everyone, his tone laced with sarcasm. Everyone else had joined in the laughter, but only Nathaniel had carefully noted my preferences. My face immediately flushed crimson, the heat spreading to my earlobes. The entire breakfast I ate without tasting. Nathaniel patiently waited for me to finish breakfast, then took a napkin and meticulously wiped my mouth before taking my hand. He cautiously asked, "Grace, I'd like to take you to meet my parents. Is that all right?" My fingertips felt hot, and I suddenly became nervous. "So soon?" Nathaniel's lips curved into a slight smile, a rare hint of mischief in his eyes. "We are legally married, why not?" "True. He's Nathaniel. There's no reason to keep such a big event as marriage a secret from his parents." I nodded. "Okay, let me change first." His obsidian-like eyes instantly lit up, the burning affection almost searing through me. He responded hoarsely, "I'll wait for you." I had expected to meet his parents at his family estate, or at the very least, not at a gala. This wasn't even a family dinner, it was a social gala, where high society figures gathered. Nathaniel held my hand tightly, his palm warm. He leaned his head closer and explained, "They are quite busy. When they're not working at the company, they're attending galas." I hadn't expected him to be so thoughtful, explaining even these things to me seriously. My heart immediately quickened a little. Nathaniel led me deeper into the gala hall. A familiar voice abruptly reached my ears, filled with obvious anger. "Chloe, can you please stop making a scene?" I looked up to see Marcus sitting at the table in front of me, irritably rubbing his temples. Chloe stood in front of him, hands on her hips. "Didn't you say you'd marry me after you dumped Grace? What's going on now? Don't tell me you still have feelings for her." Marcus trembled with anger, his eyes dark, deep, and cold. "You also know I dumped her for you. Look at yourself, she was far more sensible than you." My steps grew heavy, as if I were rooted to the spot. Chloe's eyes trembled violently, and after a long moment, she forced out a sentence. "Didn't you marry her just to spite me? You said she was meek and timid, not your type, just a pretty face to save appearances. How come you are changing your tune now?" Marcus sneered, his tone openly mocking. "Because she's better at taking care of people, and she's prettier than you. Is that enough?" I knew he said that to anger Chloe, but hearing his comments about me still filled me with sorrow. Was this the man I had wholeheartedly cared for and deeply loved for 3 years? In the end, my feelings were nothing more than a tool for him to mock others and flaunt himself. Nathaniel squeezed my hand tighter, about to lead me away. Marcus seemed to sense something, lifted his gaze, and looked over. "Grace." My body stiffened, unsure whether to stay or go. Yet he strode over, extending his hand towards me right in front of Chloe. "Grace, How about we get back together? I hastily stepped back, lost my footing, and fell into Nathaniel's firm embrace. His chest was solid, and the arm around me was strong, inexplicably reassuring. Nathaniel smirked playfully, slowly saying, "Did you just say you want to get back together with my wife?" Chapter, Don't Dream of Old Taking Again. Marcus slowly frowned, asking hesitantly, "Grace?" Nestled in Nathaniel's arms, I moved backward with him. "Don't call me that." The name that once sounded intimate now only left me feeling disgusted. "We have no relationship anymore." "How can we have no relationship?" Marcus shook off Chloe's hand, anxiously stepping forward. "Grace, we've been together for so long. How can you say we have no relationship just like that?" Nathaniel's embrace around me tightened unconsciously. When he spoke, his tone still carried a strong sense of authority. "The divorce papers were written by your own hand. Please show some self-respect." Hearing him, I felt an immense sense of peace. "That doesn't count." In a ring's increasingly cold expression, Marcus continued, "Grace, I never married Chloe. I only married you." "Only married me what?" He wasn't going to say he only married me, was he? A wave of nausea rose in my chest. "Oh, but you cheated." Hearing this, Marcus' face gradually turned a shade of sickly purple. He wanted to argue but couldn't find an excuse. "If you don't want anyone to know, don't do it in the first place. Actions always leave traces, you can't cover fire with paper. It's too late to regret now, so why bother with this extra effort?" His behavior only served to make me realize even more clearly what a terrible person I had wasted my feelings on, and nothing more. This man in front of me lived in his own world, always believing that everything should revolve around him. Whoever he wanted back had to obediently return. Whoever he decided to like had to accept his affections. I scoffed softly. "Marcus, there's no having it both ways in this world. Since you gave me up, don't try to reminisce about the past with me." Memories flooded my mind once again. The time before the divorce hadn't been that long ago. Yet it felt worlds apart from now, as distant as if shrouded in mist, unclear in my memory. During the years I lived with Marcus, what he loved most was to order me around, taking advantage of my love for him. At the time, blinded by love, I always felt that the Marcus I remembered deserved my absolute best. Only now, looking back, did I suddenly realize. Back then, wasn't I manipulated by him? You see, Nathaniel married me, and he asked, "Is there a breakfast you like? I'll make it for you." Marcus' daily routine, however, was to demand, "I'm about to leave for business. Why isn't your breakfast ready yet?" Even if I woke up at 6 before dawn and cooked him a lavish breakfast, he would still scan it disdainfully, and nitpick, "This biscuit isn't soft enough, did you not put your heart into making it? The coffee is cold, what happened? I am busy with business, can't you be more attentive? It tastes awful. Where did you buy this toast? From now on, get me imported jam, or I won't eat it." Even if I explained to him that biscuits are as soft as they get when steamed, that the coffee cooled easily because he delayed in cold weather, and that the jam and toast were a substitute we'd discussed the night before because I couldn't get them from our usual place that day, he still found 1,000 ways to express his impatience with me. In fact, before I met Nathaniel, I once thought such a life was normal for a married couple. What couple doesn't argue, or doesn't need to adjust to each other? So I also manipulated myself with his words. "Oh, right, he was displeased because I didn't buy good biscuits, he must be very tired from work. After eating awful jam and being plied with alcohol by clients, wouldn't he feel even worse? Cold coffee isn't good, it hurts the stomach." Eventually, I almost believed all of it, becoming increasingly sensitive and insecure, always obeying his every whim. It's laughable that I later discovered his running business simply meant he'd carry a contract, and arrogantly wait for the client to sign it, and the biscuits were actually his favorite kind. He'd deliberately make things difficult just because he woke up in a bad mood. The day everything made me secretly grateful. Thank goodness fate was kind to me, and allowed me to meet Nathaniel. Only then could I firmly move on and clearly understand what was right and wrong. It was just as the proverb says, I could have endured the darkness had I not seen the light. And was that unforgettable, strong, rational, deeply affectionate yet restrained light for me? A smack sound broke my thoughts. Marcus held the marriage certificate, losing control, his voice trembling. You two actually got married. He had always thought it was a staged act between Nathaniel and me, just to anger him. I snatched the marriage certificate back, hugging it to my chest, and nodded, meeting his stunned gaze. Millimeters HMM. My face was a little flushed, my heart pounding rapidly, as if declaring ownership, enunciating each word. Nathaniel is my husband. The word husband seemed to possess magic. As I said it, I distinctly felt Nathaniel's chest rise and fall for a moment. Through his skin, I could almost hear his suddenly accelerated, powerful heartbeat. His fingertips lightly touched my side, his breathing suddenly growing heavier, and he whispered into my ear, "Wife." His voice was already pleasant, but now, so close, its captivating quality became even more pronounced. My ears tingled for a moment, and my face flushed. Chloe found the sight irritating. Unable to bear it any longer, she said coldly, "Since you are already married, stop interfering with Marcus and me." I opened my eyes wide in astonishment, almost wanting to applaud her ability to twist facts. Seriously? Who's actually the other woman interfering with a marriage here? Chloe stomped her foot, about to throw an unreasonable tantrum. The scene at the gala earlier had been embarrassing enough. Marcus, ultimately concerned about his reputation, quickly pulled Chloe back. Nathaniel, however, wouldn't let him leave. He lifted his chin. "Apologize to my wife." Marcus looked at me, then at him, his face visibly displeased. "Chloe, let's go." Hearing this, Nathaniel smiled, then coldly tossed out a sentence. "Apologize to my wife, or apologize to the legal team of G. I'll give you 30 seconds to think carefully." In front of me, Nathaniel was always respectful and restrained. But this kind of strong protection, I must admit, made my heart race so fast it felt like it would burst from my chest. What woman doesn't like being protected and cherished? Meeting such a wonderful person, who is so entirely on my side, I suppose I'm no exception. Marcus' face was dark, his whole body trembling with indignation. But in the end, he hardened his heart, gritted his teeth, and pulled Chloe into a 90-degree bow to us. "I'm sorry." Nathaniel curled his lip in a mocking smile, then put his arm around me and turned to leave. As he walked, he didn't forget to tease me softly. "Wife, are you still upset?" I shook my head, smiling, unable to articulate what I felt. It's not really anger, it's more that I feel my past self was too subservient. Why should I keep being angry at someone like Marcus? Nathaniel chuckled softly. "From now on, my wife will never suffer any injustice with me." His words were as solemn as a promise. I didn't reply, but silently reached out. I intertwined my fingers with his, determined never to be apart again. After the brief interlude had concluded, Nathaniel, as promised, took me to meet his parents. Chapter: A Kiss the of Life. Before coming, I had heard that Nathaniel's father, William, seemed like a very difficult person to get along with. Having weathered the corporate world's ups and downs, William's profile in magazines looked sharp, his expression stern, his eyes so piercing they seemed to cut through the page. I felt inexplicably intimidated. Probably a lingering effect of having been manipulated by Marcus. I was afraid of not being good enough, afraid of others' accusations and doubts. Even imagining the slightest possibility would cause my heart to pound with restless anxiety. But's hand, tightly clasped with mine, sent waves of burning warmth through me, like a silent reassurance. Nathaniel told me, "It's all right. My parents will definitely be pleased with you." I was surprised by his confidence and touched by such acceptance. My previously tense nerves relaxed at his words, and by the time we reached his parents, I was smiling, my eyes crinkling. Indeed, just as he said, when William saw me, his stern face suddenly softened. It was as if, in an instant, he transformed from a ruthless executive battling in the business world into an old father preoccupied with his son's marriage. From his sharp eyes, I somehow read a hint of paternal affection. "Oh, Finally, our Nathaniel is willing to get married and start a family. William, pleased, took my hand and looked me over from all angles. No matter how he looked, he was satisfied. Good girl, good girl. Now I can finally rest easy about Nathaniel. The blush on my face deepened immediately. Margaret, seeing this, also smiled gently at me. Yes, this girl looks well behaved. Very good, very good. Ours certainly has good taste. Nathaniel pulled me close and ruffled my hair, not bothering with formalities with his parents. Of course, the person I've chosen couldn't be anything less than perfect. William and Margaret chuckled, scolding him in unison, "You, child." Then they exchanged glances, deep smiles in their eyes, filled with openly spreading pride. From his life's major events, their conversation drifted to my past, and eventually, without realizing it, turned to Marcus. William's tone deepened, his gentle face tightening instantly. I heard Grace was bullied before. Barely half an hour had passed, and their address for me had already changed from "this girl" to "Grace." Their affection and deep love for me were clear. Nathaniel nodded seriously. "Yes, I'll handle it." Margaret smiled and lightly tapped him, teasing him gently. "You child. Focus on your married life with Grace. His matters. Leave them to your mother." William chuckled. "Yes, you don't need to worry." The phrase, "married life," somehow made Nathaniel blush. He nodded obediently. "Okay." Though it was only our first meeting, the atmosphere between his parents and me, including him, was as harmonious as if we were a family of four. "Don't we look like an old married couple?" Nathaniel's words always filled me with both joy and shyness in an instant. I deliberately pursed my lips and whispered back, "We are not old at all. More like we are in the honeymoon phase." We talked a lot without realizing it, until finally, William and Margaret were pulled away by business partners for work, yet they still clung to my hand with reluctance. "Grace, darling, when you have time, come visit us more often, and chat." I smiled and agreed. I thought, they truly treat me like family. It's wonderful, I'll finally have a stable home. At the gala, Nathaniel also drank his share of alcohol. It wasn't until it was time to go home that he suddenly realized, having had alcohol, he couldn't drive. "Rare," he said, taking out his phone to call the chauffeur. "I haven't been this happy in a long time." In my excitement, I forgot everything. Indeed, Nathaniel, always so upright and self-controlled, rarely indulged in such heavy drinking. It seemed I had become an exception in his world. This realization made a thought spark involuntarily. Just as I turned my head, I found Nathaniel looking at me, his gaze tinged with an unreadable emotion. What a coincidence, wasn't it? He and I, it seemed, were on the same wavelength. The surge of emotion was overwhelming, like a wave crashing over me. Many images flashed through my mind in an instant. I thought of how kind Nathaniel's parents were to me, and how thoughtful and considerate Nathaniel himself was. In the end, the solemn promises made my heart tremble incessantly. With every thought, it seemed I loved him a little more, enjoyed the feeling of being loved a little more. Thinking this, I couldn't help but rise on my tiptoes and kiss him. A girl's kiss is mostly shy, I suppose. The moment our lips truly met, my mind suddenly went blank with a rush. I couldn't think of anything, nor did I want to. Before my eyes, in my heart, only this one person remained. Nathaniel. He had become the irresistible fire in my life, and also the lamp illuminating my past and future. From then on, near or far, there would be no more encroaching darkness. My kiss was meant to be a fleeting touch, but he leaned in, cupped the back of my head, and kissed me again. His kiss was dominant yet tender, lingering and irresistible. As if to make up for all the years we'd missed, he couldn't get enough. For a moment, we were inseparable. My eyes welled up from his kisses, my legs so weak I could barely stand, only supported by his strong arms. Nathaniel leaned into my ear, his embrace scorching, his hot breath on my neck igniting a dense, tingling sensation. He asked earnestly, "Wife, when are you planning to start our married life together?" Before I could answer, he kissed me again, mumbling indistinctly, "If you want to wait, that's fine too. Chapter, from on, you my later, our chauffeur picked us up, and took us home. After tidied up my room, he took off his jacket, preparing to shower. His well-defined knuckles, as they rested on his jacket button, exuded a silent, alluring coolness. I wanted to turn my head away and stop looking, but my eyes couldn't move. It wasn't until Nathaniel, unfastening his tie, turned his head and our gazes met, that I lowered mine in embarrassment. No, nothing. My voice was a little soft. You go take your shower, I'll head back to my room. But he wouldn't let me go. Nathaniel strode towards me, a laugh rumbling in his chest. If my wife wants to look, then look to your heart's content. In front of me, he untied his necktie, then removed his jacket. Even though he still had his long-sleeved undershirt on, I inexplicably felt like he was almost entirely undressed. This realization startled me, and I turned to hide, but he leaned in close to my ear again, whispering, "Anyway, only my wife is allowed to see." Oh, Lord. Who could resist that? Finally, he stepped back and walked away. "No rush," he said, opening the bathroom door. His voice echoed with a certain haziness in the spacious hall. "I'll wait until you are ready." One morning after we were married, Brooke woke me up with a phone call. I answered, still half asleep, only to hear an excited voice on the other end that sounded like she'd just had a triple espresso. "Your husband is really something else." Brooke, with her usual directness, started right off with a bombshell. "My husband, capable." Ahem, while I knew she definitely didn't mean it that way, how could I hear that phrase without finding it ambiguous? Could it be that Nathaniel was corrupting me after all? What good news has you so happy? I curled my lips into a smile, as if anticipating something good about to happen. "Hey." Brooke was momentarily stunned. "Your husband didn't tell you." I shook my head. "No, what is it?" Brooke went on like this for a full 20 minutes before I finally heard the complete story of what happened. It turned out William had spoken truly. Marcus' company had indeed been dealt with by him. Only, the method of dealing with it was rather unique. In novels, business warfare, a single command sends thousands of troops to bring down a company, ignoring laws and acting with vicious cruelty. In real-life business warfare, the prosperity trees at Marcus' company withered overnight, the prized platinum arowana in the fish tank replaced with common carp, and the lucky cat at the reception desk swapped out for a cartoon pig figurine. Who wouldn't be impressed by such an absurd display? Hearing this, I couldn't help but chuckle aloud. And then, Brooke animatedly described from the other side of the screen, "I am dying laughing. You absolutely have to go see the front of Marcus' company." I murmured a questioning, tell me more, so vividly recounted how the advertising space outside Marcus' company had been leased by the Zwa family for 20 years, dazzling advertisements, all emblazoned with the character, Zwa. Looking up, anyone unfamiliar would think this company was a branch opened by William and Margaret. I chuckled aloud, giving the Zwa family another thumbs up in my mind. They've really got something. More than something. Brooke's tone was glowing with pride. Marcus, too, dared to openly falsify records in his collaboration with the Zwa family. The quality of delivered instruments and the financial statements were both problematic. That was quite audacious. The family was already planning to intervene, and Marcus' actions were tantamount to him walking straight into a trap. Besides that, there were multiple unforeseen issues in their business collaborations. The once prosperous Marcus company was ultimately dragged down, bit by bit. Even a 100-foot mountain can be brought down by an ant's nest, let alone when Marcus had personally planted a bomb under his own company. After chatting with Brooke for a while longer, I saw the full scope of the incident more directly in the news push on my phone. Established family in high society exposes Marcus company's fraud. Relevant departments have launched an investigation. Marcus company declares bankruptcy. What does the future hold? Marcus publicly apologizes, crossed the wrong people. The comment section was bustling like a holiday carnival. I heard Marcus was unfaithful in his marriage, and it chilled me at the time. Could those in power simply do as they pleased? Thankfully, justice, though delayed, arrived. Marcus company deserving its fate today. Rumors of his words circulated before, but they were suppressed. I really suggest you listen to them. It's absurd. Reply to upstairs, it's definitely exaggerated, not something a person would say. I'm not articulate enough to say much, but one phrase seems to capture my current feelings. Some rising star in the business world thought he was so impressive, turns out he's just a guy who got ahead through data fraud. I heard he didn't end up well. After he cheated, the other woman fled the moment his company ran into trouble. Serves him right. He didn't cherish his wife at home, opting instead to play the field. His company went under, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. And so on. The comments were endless. When one falls, many rush to push them further down. His actions had ignited public outrage. Scrolling through, there wasn't a single person who sympathized with him. What are you looking at, wife? The comments section was full of witty remarks, making my lips curl into a smile. I hadn't even noticed Nathaniel had walked up behind me. He naturally wrapped his arm around my waist, gently embracing me. I showed him my phone screen, and sure enough, I saw his lips curl into a smile as well. He was dumped by Chloe. You did this. No, she herself was dissatisfied with Marcus. Love based on materialism and ulterior motives is, of course, never long-lasting. I wasn't surprised by the outcome between them. On a dilapidated street, Sam popped open a beer, scratching his head with some hesitation. Did you and Chloe break up? Shadows deepened the gloom around Marcus' eyes. After a long silence, he softly hummed, yeah. She dumped me. He bit out the hateful words, and here I thought she wasn't with me for the money. Sigh. Sam picked up his beer, and gulped down a large mouthful. If only you'd proposed to her sooner, things wouldn't have gotten to this point today. Marcus' expression grew colder, his eyes filled with unconcealed desolation and sorrow. Chloe and I could never have worked out. We weren't compatible. Sam's eyes widened in disbelief at his words. What? He asked. For all these years, haven't you always been thinking of her? How could you not be compatible, even after you married Grace? That name clearly touched a raw nerve. Marcus frowned fiercely. Don't mention Grace. All right, I won't, Sam said helplessly, only able to humor him. I asked you at the gala, you said you wouldn't propose. And now, sigh, no one's left. Marcus looked dejected. Marriage is even more trouble. That's true. Sam nodded, handing him a beer. Marcus took the beer, drank a mouthful, and frowned. This tastes awful. Sam let out a heavy sigh. Now, this cheap liquor was all he could afford. Did he still think this was the heyday of Marcus' company? They no longer had the luxury of being picky. What are you going to do now? Sam chugged down his beer, crushing the can. If you are really in trouble, come find me. I can't promise you a lavish life, but a normal one won't be an issue. Marcus offered a desolate smile, words swirling in his throat for a moment before he swallowed them down. It was true Sam could provide for his living expenses, but what about his debts? How could Sam, from an ordinary family, possibly repay millions? Okay. Marcus' only act of kindness was to block all of Sam's contact information after he turned away, walking alone into the deepening night. We met again later. One day, as Nathaniel and I were out on a date, I spotted a familiar figure by a streetlight. Marcus stood beneath the lamplight, looking utterly defeated, his eyes vacant. Only when he saw me did a faint spark ignite in his eyes. Grace, I'm sorry. Marcus jogged towards me. I subtly stepped aside, using Nathaniel's arm to evade him. Please save Marcus' company. 3 years of us. You can't just let that go so easily, can you? Chapter. The will in unseen. I spoke coldly. Marcus, you know perfectly well how you treated me these past 3 years. Marcus' body swayed, a dazed look on his face. How did he treat me? He ignored me completely when things came up, openly made fun of me in front of his friends, and took it for granted that I would do this and that for him. Marcus indeed fell silent. His gaze fell upon our intertwined hands, trembling violently, deeply hurt. Several cheap cigarette butts lay scattered at his feet. It seemed he had smoked quite a bit while waiting for me. For old time's sake, he took a deep breath, then slowly knelt down. Grace, I beg you. The man who had once been stubbornly defiant and incredibly proud in front of me, was now kneeling before me, humbled to the dust. In truth, he had many opportunities. When I served him breakfast, he could have sweet-talked me to make me happy. When Chloe returned from abroad, and sought him out, he could have firmly rejected her. At the gala, if he hadn't uttered those words that demeaned me so, I don't think destiny would have led me here. But life, by its very nature, is a journey without if-onlys. How could the people he'd lost, everything he'd taken for granted, accompany him into the future now? Nathaniel's voice cut in, cold as biting frost. Does your Neil hold any value? He gave a slight smirk, his gaze sweeping over the man before him. Indeed, he was no longer the head of Marcus Company. For someone in power, a Neil might be worth a fortune, but given his current predicament, what value did this Neil hold? Marcus lay trembling on the ground, silent for a long time. Well, isn't this Mr. Marcus? How did you end up like this? A group of thugs, with their arms slung around each other's shoulders, encircled him, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Marcus bit his lip, saying nothing, but a single sentence made him stop. Are you really desperate for money? The thug burst into laughter after saying this, and seeing Marcus' eyes widen in astonishment, he doubled over with mirth. Ha ha ha, the thug pointed at him, pretending to just notice he was kneeling. Ah, I finally see it. Wen's company engaged in unfair competition, secretly taking down my brother's business. I knew this day would come. At the mention of their big brother, the thugs all grew indignant. Exactly, his heart is black. Our big brother was in such a mess back then, he shouldn't get off easy either. Well, look at him now, bankrupt. Ha 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 ha. A tall, lanky guy leaned closer, pulled the leader of the thugs aside, and whispered a few words. I think this idea is pretty interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to see his face later. The leading thug clapped and cheered after hearing it, then stepped forward and deliberately stomped on Marcus' hand, asking mysteriously, I've got a great way for you to make money. Wanna hear it? His finger bones were crushed, and sweat beaded on Marcus' forehead from the pain. But hearing about money, and recalling the intimidating faces of his creditors, he forced himself to suppress a cry of pain. What method? The leading thug ground his foot on Marcus' hand with satisfaction, then squatted down and showed him the social media profile QR code on his phone. Add this. The thug glanced at Marcus' bloodshot fingers, then smacked his lips. She'll give you money. Marcus thought, what kind of good fortune like this exists in the world? Yet, when his hand was freed, he couldn't help but take out his phone and scan the code. The other person's profile popped up, 56 years old, female, with a baby's photo as the avatar. On the baby's forehead, a line of text in bright red had been photoshopped, seeking a spouse. Marcus' entire body stiffened instantly, humiliation creeping up his spine. His voice trembling, he stammered, This is. The thug laughed dismissively. Think about it. The group of people joked amongst themselves, as they walked away casually. Nobody's forcing you, anyway. As the leader walked, he nudged the person next to him. Hey, do you think he'll actually go? I think he will. The lanky guy, who had come up with the idea, was very certain. He has no other choice. Marcus' helpless slump on the ground, and what kind of abyss he would eventually plunge into, naturally had nothing to do with me. Yet, seeing him, I couldn't help but recall the past. I leaned in close to Nathaniel's ear, and quietly asked, by the way, something just occurred to me. Did you know me a long time ago? Nathaniel's familiarity and understanding of me often exceeded my expectations. His eyes held a distant memory. He chuckled softly. You could say that. He gently ruffled my hair, and as we walked, he recounted the story to me. The twilight streetlights cast an intimate, hazy glow. He quietly spoke of our meeting, and intense affection flowed continuously beneath the light. 4 years ago, Nathaniel's family company faced a public relations crisis. They were targeted by rumors. Suddenly, a deluge of negative publicity came crashing down. Many investors withdrew their funds, and media outlets spread rumors that the most established family in high society was about to collapse. Nathaniel was still studying abroad at the time he heard about the situation in the news, and flew back home overnight. He had never seen his strategic and decisive parents wear such helpless and anxious expressions. Such a large-scale publicity attack clearly indicated it was deliberately orchestrated by someone. The crisis management team went all out, contacting multiple authoritative institutions, only to be told they couldn't provide corroborating information. The family had countless matters to deal with every day, stretching themselves thin, constantly busy. Even when the intense workload became too much and they needed a short break, they still had to constantly monitor major online forums. Coincidentally, I, then a university student, accidentally pieced together the truth behind the crisis from some subtle clues. Eager to confirm my suspicions, and with final exams over, I had plenty of free time, so I went online and compiled all the negative publicity. The negative publicity was systematic and large-scale, which inevitably led to a high degree of consistency in its content, whereas real people, when recounting events, find their perspectives rarely aligned perfectly. Through my investigation, I was surprised to find that the rumors had a discernible pattern. I've always been someone who acts immediately on an idea. But who would have thought that a spontaneous act, a seed planted by coincidence back then, would eventually bear fruit and blossom into something incredibly vibrant? Back then, I spent 3 days and nights crafting a debunking post, and with a burst of impulse, I published it. Although an individual's power could hardly compete with a corporation, the post was quickly drowned out by a wave of slander from the opposing side. But perhaps it was fate. Nathaniel happened to see the post. Among all the angry condemnations and attempts at kicking someone when they're down, even the slightest act of kindness can be remembered for a long time. And the Zhuo family not only remembered this kindness, but kept it in their hearts for an entire lifetime. The family, an established family in high society, certainly had capabilities. At a time when almost half the elite circles were waiting to see the Zhuo family fail, William, relying on his masterful grasp of human nature, personally guided the crisis public relations efforts, slowly reversing the decline. The companies found to be involved in spreading rumors were later sued, one by one. After the Zhuo family returned to their peak, the negative publicity was withdrawn piece by piece, clarifications spread everywhere, and Nathaniel began to frequently appear at celebrity galas with his parents. After the storm, the victors remained as composed as ever. Nathaniel remained the arrogant and imperious Nathaniel, an individual many could only look up to. From some unknown day, Marcus also began attending those galas. As a rising star with unlimited potential from a listed company, and the sole heir of an established business family, the two were constantly compared. The day Marcus first appeared at the gala, the practice of fawning over the powerful and looking down on the weak was evident everywhere in this circle, which prioritized profit. Many people held up red wine, eager to ingratiate themselves with Marcus as soon as possible. Flattery poured in from all sides. "Oh, truly worthy of a rising star in the business world, you are a truly dashing and talented man. I heard you have a wife, how wonderful. Young, with both family and career thriving. I truly envy you, how impressive. Come, let me propose a toast to you. Wife," Marcus said with a dismissive laugh, taking a drink. "I regret getting married, there are so many rules and restrictions. Back then, seeing how much she liked me, I was soft-hearted, sigh. If I'd known, I would have just kept her as a mistress instead. She's such a timid coward, so introverted. I don't even dare to take her to these galas, I'm afraid she'd embarrass me. Ha ha ha, listen to you. It seems Mr. Marcus truly knows how to handle his wife, she must be obedient to his every whim at home, right?" Marcus was quite pleased with these comments, raising an eyebrow and drawing out his reply, "Of course, she does everything I say." Among so many people, it was inevitable that some secretly looked down on how he treated his wife. But for the sake of their own interests, everyone knew the truth yet stopped short of addressing it. Everyone was busy exchanging empty compliments, indulging in a hollow sense of accomplishment, and no one was willing to be the one to speak out and tear away that veil of truth and suspicion. Nathaniel didn't often join their conversations, yet he inevitably overheard bits and pieces. The more he heard, the more he couldn't help but form an impression of the timid and fearful wife. Marcus described his excellent upbringing, told him that judging one's own family in such a way was truly despicable. He found it even harder to imagine how a so-called rising star in the business world could marry a wife he described as utterly worthless. As he didn't need to kowtow to Marcus, so he decisively launched an investigation, and what an investigation it turned out to be. Nathaniel finally discovered that the meek and submissive doormat wife Marcus spoke of was actually the benefactor who had stepped forward to clear the Zhuo family's name years ago, and my ability to organize, format, and synthesize information from investigations was already evident then. Due to my engagement with Marcus at the time, Nathaniel had to restrain himself, pretending ignorance. He was waiting for an opportunity. Finally, one time, Marcus was getting intimate with Chloe, and Nathaniel caught him cheating. In moment, I finally beside inside the room, the man and woman were passionately entangled, completely lost in each other. Marcus' eyes were flushed at the corners, and Chloe was equally overcome with emotion. He seemed to have completely forgotten that his wife was still at home, waiting for him to return for dinner. Nathaniel was always calm and restrained, but that time he felt a rare surge of anger. Suppressing his rage, he asked the hotel front desk for the surveillance footage. The moment he had the surveillance footage, Nathaniel knew his chance had arrived. A legitimate and proper opportunity to marry me. The girl who had bravely spoken up for the Zhuo family all those years ago deserved all the best in the world, not Marcus' endless insults and degradation. Fortunately, fate has been kind to me. As he finished speaking, Nathaniel kissed my brow with deep emotion. His voice was filled with tenderness and concern. Beneath the lights, his eyes were noble and gentle, and when he looked at me, only I remained in his eyes. Nothing else. In that moment, a thought suddenly arose in my heart. From then on, he was the one. I felt a stirring, and rubbed my face softly against the back of his hand, clearly feeling Nathaniel's breath hitch for a moment. And smiling, I asked him, "Nathaniel, haven't you always wanted to experience married life?" He held his breath, and in that moment, countless lights dimmed, leaving only the exquisite clarity of the person before him, every smile and frown. His voice was laced with an almost imperceptible huskiness, remarkably devout, desire burning at the corners of his eyes, tinging them red. "May I?" I smiled sweetly. Of course. That date, however, never quite happened. The reason was simple. Emotion, like a breaking dam, once breached, could no longer be contained. Nathaniel took me back, rushing home without delay. The moment we stepped inside, before even turning on the lights, his warm body pressed against mine. His voice was laced with an extreme huskiness, magnetic and tantalizing. Nathaniel clutched me tightly, unable to bear it. His apple bobbed, the heat of his palm startling. He murmured, restraining himself, "Wife, I." He couldn't hold back anymore. Blushing, I lightly patted him, but we never quite made it back to the room. Clothes lay scattered on the floor. Strong hands embraced my trembling body, and my slender waist was gently lifted. My body went soft, words shattered between my lips, only the beat of my heart growing clearer and clearer. I lost myself in his gaze, melted in the warmth he gave. For the rest of my life, only this one person remained in my heart. Nothing else. How incredibly fortunate for me to have met you. Later, I went to Nathaniel's company, and, relying on my own abilities, secured the position of CEO. At first, Nathaniel wanted me to be parachuted into this position, but I refused. I want to climb up step by step, based on my own abilities. Nathaniel chuckled, looking at me without surprise. I figured. You are so resolute in these matters. He arranged my workstation, and I, facing the stack of documents, picked them up without hesitation. You don't have to work so desperately. Again, I worked overtime until 1 in the morning. When I returned home, Nathaniel had left a light on for me, his eyes full of tenderness and concern. Yet, within that tenderness and concern, I saw unconcealed admiration. It's okay. I'll work a little harder to get promoted sooner. Nathaniel leaned in affectionately and kissed me, then squatted down to take off my shoes. You alone can handle the workload of 3 people. He moved his hand up, massaging my calf. Go rest, the bath water is already warm. Cared for so thoughtfully by him, my entire body's fatigue vanished instantly. Okay. I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him. His eyes darkened, and he spoke in a husky voice, "I'm going back to the room first." If I kept lingering around him, he really couldn't guarantee he wouldn't do something. "Okay, we have work tomorrow." I agreed, then turned and walked into the bathroom. I worked like this for 2 years, slowly climbing the ranks, repeatedly ranking first in performance with my outstanding business abilities. My name was constantly on the company's honor roll, and the subordinates who had witnessed my growth became increasingly admiring of me. My abilities rapidly improved with each project, until finally, I truly deserved the position of CEO. So, after a collective evaluation, the board of directors approved the appointment. I finally, through my own abilities, truly sat in that position. Before, some people at the company would say, "Given's relationship with Nathaniel, she must have come into the company just to scrounge off him." But later, whenever anyone heard that, they would immediately retort, "For me, if you are so capable, why don't you do it yourself?" Grace's business abilities are plain for all to see. Are you just jealous? So bitter? Were you a lemon in a past life? With their support, I also became more and more confident, vibrant every single day. "Grace, please take a look at this project and see if it's feasible." My young secretary handed me a stack of introductory materials. As I flipped through the documents, I heard her praising me nearby. "Grace, it's truly impressive that you've reached this position at such a young age." And I simply smiled calmly, "Work hard, and you can achieve it too." MHM. The young girl nodded vigorously. William and Margaret, though they didn't explicitly say anything, noticed all these things at the company. "Your parents want to invite you to dinner." I looked at the time after finishing overtime one day. 8 in the evening. Acceptable, at least it wasn't midnight. Taking the elevator downstairs, I unexpectedly found Nathaniel waiting by the elevator, and he draped his coat over my shoulders. "Come on, I'm taking you to dinner." Chapter, Hour, a lifelong. At our second meeting, perhaps knowing William and Margaret's kindness and acceptance towards me, I was much more relaxed than at our first encounter. William and Margaret looked at me with admiration, while Nathaniel took my hand, his eyes full of unconcealed pride. "I knew it," he said. "My wife deserves all the best in the world." Behind him, William and Margaret also smiled and nodded. He always had this power, making me certain of one thing countless times. Wherever they were, that would be the home that would always be open to me, always accepting. After's company collapsed, Marcus fell into destitution for several years, and then simply vanished without a trace. No one knew where he went. Some speculated he might have died, others said they saw him doing odd jobs. The rumors were a mix of truth and fiction, unclear and vague. Only one thing was certain, whether alive or dead, Marcus' life must have been incredibly difficult. Meanwhile, Chloe once again used her schemes to charm another wealthy man. At their blind date, the man was dressed head to toe in borrowed designer brands, his phone hiding PUA tutorials, delivering lines according to the persona she most admired. She congratulated herself on marrying into wealth, only to discover in the end that the man was deceiving her. Chloe looked at the marriage certificate in her hand, then at the bare, impoverished house, so furious she smashed her suitcase. The man, however, laughed scornfully. "Just be content with what you have. For a woman who knowingly became the other woman, it's good enough that I even took you in." Amidst his sarcastic, "You should be eternally grateful to me," Chloe, who had never had to do any housework before, started washing dishes and mopping floors. In less than half a year, her delicate, fair hands became rough like an old woman's. Meanwhile, I, with my slender fingers, held a pen, signing contracts one by one. Time seemed to have left no trace on these hands. Only a diamond ring on my ring finger sparkled with silver light, stunningly beautiful under the office lights, making me constantly reach out to touch it. Behind me, Nathaniel watched me with a smile. His gaze was gentle and focused, simply fixed on me. From sunrise to sunset, as if he could never get enough. I blushed under his gaze and asked in a small voice, "Husband, how much longer are you going to watch?" I'm a little shy. We had been together for 3 years, yet our affection remained as intense and fervent as when we first met. Nathaniel chuckled softly. How about you let me watch you for a lifetime? Of course. I was willing to walk hand in hand with him, side by side, accompanying him for the rest of our lives until we grew old together. End of main. Extra. Close POV. The first time I saw Marcus, the young man was elegant and graceful, breathtaking at first glance. I softly called him Marcus, and when he looked back, a flicker of awe flashed in his eyes. I had always been somewhat confident in my appearance. That look from him, in that moment, was love at first sight, that made my heart race. Young infatuation always has an inexplicable origin. At that time, my family's financial situation was still decent, and part of my planned life involved studying abroad. I always knew I would settle abroad in the future, and I understood I shouldn't get involved with Marcus. But he pursued me first. Besides, the heart wants what it wants. After accepting his confession, I hinted indirectly by asking, Marcus, do you have any plans to go abroad? At that time, Marcus hadn't yet established Marcus Company. Seeing my question, he spoke vaguely, maybe I'll go abroad. Later, I learned that his maybe was actually short for, no way. The day I went abroad, Marcus unusually expressed unhappiness. He asked me, can you not go? I shook my head. I've been preparing to go abroad for years, how can I just not go? His gaze at that moment left a deep impression on me. He gazed deeply at me, and then, as if finally having seen enough, he let go of my hand. Marcus didn't try to stop me again. Just as I was about to say something to salvage the moment, he suddenly curved his lips into a smile. The smile was forced, but he said, Chloe, go. I'll wait for you to come back. Was I delusional? I always thought his, I'll wait for you to come back, meant the same as, I'll keep the girlfriend spot open for you. So I confidently went abroad, ignoring his dimmed gaze. My best friend called from overseas, Chloe, can you really bear to leave him and go? I couldn't really say if I could bear it or not. He'd still be there when I returned. Wasn't that enough? I suppose I was a little presumptuous due to being favored, so I replied, I haven't left him. We'll still be together when I come back. The other end of the line was silent for a moment, then my best friend laughed. Oh, you. Showing off your relationship again, aren't you? I laughed too. He said he'd wait for me. Distance would dilute everything, even making me ignore how he massaged me less and less, and his words were no longer as enthusiastic as they once were. Later, I returned to the country as arranged, but Marcus, standing before me, was a stranger. He had grown taller, and he was no longer as tolerant of me as before. I heard he had become the CEO of a listed company, now incredibly wealthy, and had a wife at home. I asked in surprise, didn't you say you'd wait for me? Marcus replied coldly, when you went abroad, did you ever think about waiting for me? The sudden turn of events stunned me, and for a moment, as if possessed, I drugged Marcus. I always felt he was mine, and only mine. Pulling himself away from the disheveled bedsheets, Marcus radiated heat. His eyes narrowed as he looked at me. Chloe, do you really love me that much? Love. I couldn't say. It felt more like a desire for conquest, to make an unattainable ideal fall for me. I don't think I liked him all that much, otherwise, I wouldn't have felt no emotional stir when I went abroad, nor would I have, once there, chatted with him often, but rarely felt a spark. Between us, lovers, was too strong a word, paramours, felt just right. So I got my wish, and became his secret paramour. But watching his assets grow rapidly, the surging desire in my heart reached its peak, after he gave me an apartment. Do you understand the feeling of immense wealth being right beside you, yet not belonging to you? I always felt he still cherished our youthful affection, that I should have married him, and all of it should have been mine. Moreover, whenever Marcus sneered, talking about all his wife's faults, I naturally assumed he would eventually come back to me. It must have been women's petty jealousy. I started to use this topic frequently to subtly provoke him. Finally, one day, he invited me to a gala, bringing a circle of friends along. I specifically chose the dress that most resembled a wedding gown from my wardrobe to commemorate the moment. It was easy to guess, wasn't it? He was planning to propose to me. After a few rounds of drinks, I waited for my good news. To my surprise, half drunk, he called out, "Grace, make me some hangover remedy." In his words was an unconscious tenderness and familiarity even he hadn't noticed, a domineering and bossy tone that spoke of deep familiarity with someone else. I immediately panicked, wanting to wake him up. After all, if he didn't propose to me, I wouldn't be able to claim his assets as my own. Sam, my good friend, even helped me by hinting at it. To my surprise, Marcus shook his head, denying it, saying it was just a regular gathering. In that instant, I knew it was impossible for us ever again. Because in a way he hadn't even realized, his dependence on Grace had permeated every aspect of his life. Later, we crossed Nathaniel, and neither of us fared well, so I broke up with him without much hesitation. Again, he didn't try to stop me. At the time, I thought he just couldn't bring himself to say it, but now I understand that from the moment I went abroad, he had given up on me. Although later, he mistakenly thought he still loved me, and almost considered marrying me. But everything could never go back to how it was. So this time, I chose to let him go. But returning home, as I touched my Hermes bag, held my Van Arpels jewelry, and saw a neat row of Armani perfume bottles on the table, a darkness quietly grew in my heart. I had grown accustomed to a life of luxury. How could I possibly go back to my old life? Things that might take decades of my own struggle to achieve could come so quickly simply by relying on a man I had tasted the sweetness, and from then on, like tasting the marrow, becoming addicted, I couldn't quit. Using my looks and sweet words, I hooked another incredibly wealthy man. He was handsome and dressed in designer brands, clearly the standard type of business elite you'd read about in novels. Not only that, but he also knew my preferences well, chatting with me, from jewelry to the latest haute couture designs. I thought to myself, he's the one. I happily prepared for the wedding, picking dress after dress at the bridal boutique, asking him, which one looks good on me? The man smiled, buy the most expensive one. This suited me perfectly, so I contentedly went to City Hall with him to get our marriage certificate, then followed him back to his family estate, preparing to hold the wedding once the ordered wedding gown arrived. But I never expected to be scammed. I looked at the marriage certificate in my hand, then at the dilapidated house with bare walls, and angrily threw my suitcase. What do you mean? Didn't you say you were a senior executive at a listed company? You live in a dump like this. The man slowly smiled, be content, a woman knowingly being a mistress. You should be glad I even took you in. The wedding gown order was fake, that receipt was forged by me. The designer brands I wore when I met you were all rented fakes. I can't believe even that managed to trick you. I was tricked into a rural town, unfamiliar with the place and its people, unable to escape even if I wanted to. And he forced me to do all the housework, washing dishes, mopping floors, without missing a single chore, and to take meticulous care of him. This life was suffocating. The mere thought of it made me collapse onto the floor in despair. It turned out everything he had promised was a lie. Only the marriage certificate was real. And being trapped, that was real too. End of episode. Thank you for reading. Faced with betrayal, will you compromise or fight back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.